It has been some week for you. You've been all over my X feed or Twitter feed. Um, so much seems to be happening in Switzerland and Bern. How are you doing after this week?
Hi, Jordan. Good to be on your podcast. I'm doing great. I had 3 very intense weeks, but I had a lot of great experiences. So I feel really good. I feel tired. Looking forward to some rest, but otherwise fine.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So for everyone that's listening um, what is it that you do in your day to day? And then we'll get into what these past few weeks have been like for you.
Sure. So I have been a member of parliament in Canton Bern, Switzerland, for almost 8 years now. I studied political science at the University of Bern. And being a member of parliament is a part-time job in Switzerland. So even on the national level, if you're in the parliament, you're doing this part-time, and so you're still in the job that you've been in when you were elected to parliament. So that keeps us politicians sort of feet on the ground, which I think is very good. And we don't have too much time to come up with new stupid laws. So I think that's working in our favor, or like for us in Switzerland. So because I work part-time in the parliament, I still, and I'm a political scientist, so I actually still also work for my political party, which is a Christian Conservative Party. And I also am self-employed, so I also do translation work, and I help people to get out of the fiat system. I started with gold and silver, and with the years, I learned more about Bitcoin, added Bitcoin to that advisory portfolio. And so, yeah, that's basically lots of different things I do professionally.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Is that the norm for politicians in Switzerland to be part-time in politics and part-time outside of politics?
It's the norm for those of us who are in parliament. If you're in the government of a larger province or canton, as they're called in Switzerland, then this is really a full-time job. And of course, if you're one of the 7 ministers in the national government, it's way more than 100% job. But a member of parliament on all state levels, it's a part-time job.
The Because this is a question that I had to Google. Um, a canton is a state, or essentially a state in Switzerland. Is that correct?
Yes, it's quite similar to the United States, where the states have quite a lot of autonomy. Also similar to Germany with the Bundesland.
Nice. Yeah, that's what I came across, and I didn't want to confuse anyone by saying canton because it was the first time that I'd come across it. Um,
Mm.
so coming into Bitcoin, let's bring it back. You said that you were into gold and silver, um,
Yes.
initially, and then so how's that journey been for you? Finding out going into gold and silver, and then did you just transition into Bitcoin?
It was a lonesome journey when I started to do my research on the financial system at the beginning of 2015. I felt so alone. It was like I didn't know anyone else who was questioning the things I was started to question. Uh, I was really almost the only one interested in buying gold and silver and getting some of my savings out of the fiat system. I heard about Bitcoin in 2015, and I know that I found it interesting already from the beginning. But um, I guess it wasn't enough to really do the deep dive at that point. And a lot of my friends really appreciated my insights into gold and silver, which quickly gained. I think there was everything there for me to understand the importance of hard money and sound money. Um, and I quickly found other people then who also were familiar with gold and silver, working in that area. But whenever I brought up Bitcoin, it was like, oh no, that's very bad, and hands off. And I was at that, and I think in 2016, I was invited to an event organized by OneCoiners, which is one of the biggest scams there was in the cryptocurrency. And they were like, "Oh, Bitcoin at $600, it's way too expensive. But we have this OneCoin thing going on now, and you can become so rich in such a short period of time." And I did not have a good feeling. And I just went to one event and wanted to see for myself, but I said, okay, no, I'm not doing this. But it sort of also drove me a bit away from Bitcoin again, although I had a certain interest. Nevertheless, I bought one Bitcoin at the end of 2016 for about $850. Then it went up in price to 1,400, and I thought, wow, let's take some profit. So I sold zero point 0.9, and you all know what happened afterwards, so no need to mention that. But I was sort of observing Bitcoin at a distance, and then I had a friend, actually two friends, who encouraged me to look at it again. And in 2020, I read the Bitcoin Standard, and that was my first gradually then suddenly moment. In 2021, I really got involved with the Bitcoin community with local meetups. In 2022, I started to go to conferences. And now this year, I think I will have been at 9 conferences. So tomorrow is my 9th conference, Bitcoin conference this year. So now I'm really deep in being a politician, being a pleb, and promoting Bitcoin.
Amazing. That's such a great story as well. And I can relate with it being a lonely journey to start with. When you're trying to discover this thing yourself, doing all the research. And also, I can also relate to um, being put off by cryptocurrencies. I had very similar in 2017. You had the early 2018 crash, and I was like, yeah, I don't want to be part of this. Uh, how's it been? I'm really interested to find out how how it's been being a public Bitcoiner, but also a politician.
Yes. So in 2021, I thought to myself, so I've been quite public about it anyway, because I'm like that. If I find something good, then I tell people about it. Sometimes also, if they don't really want to hear about it, I don't think I'm like in an annoying way, but just from time to time I would bring it up in a conversation. And in 2021, I thought to myself, wow, Bitcoin really has also important political implications. And I want my voters, my friends, and those who like me to know that I'm pro Bitcoin and that I think it's a good thing, because I want them to be also financially sovereign, more financially independent. And I want our canton to be that as well, because we're the canton with one of the highest tax rates in Switzerland. We are one of the poorer cantons. That part of it is because Napoleon stole our treasury about 200 years ago, took off with it, would be worth about $600 billion today. But oh well, shit happens. So um, anyway, so I started the parliamentary group Bitcoin in 2021. We were 3 or 4 at that time, people who were interested in Bitcoin or had Bitcoin. But some of us were like, yeah, Bitcoin is good, but the state will ban it. And so we're a bit, it's good, but yeah, not too convinced yet. Anyway, I started to do webinars, free webinars with introduction to Bitcoin. That was also in 2021. And so I've been able to orange pill a few hundred people since then, and now also a few dozen in the parliament by now. So that parliamentary group Bitcoin now has about 22 people will. Well, it's very low key. So we have a WhatsApp group. That's basically it. It's nothing fancy. But the interest definitely is growing. The Overton window is shifting, and we experienced this last week and this week.
Yeah, let's dive into that. Let's first go into your motion that got passed to explore Bitcoin mining. How long have you been working on it? Can you explain it first, what it is, and
Sure.
then how long you've been working on it?
Actually, I can say when I started to think about these things, that was in 2021. We were sitting together, the three, four of us, and thinking about what kind of political proposals to bring into parliament. And we were sort of ready to make a move, but then, as you all know, the bear market came, and wow, and then FTX collapsed, and we all knew that it would be a difficult thing then. So I waited, and in March of this year, I had the impression or the feeling that the time would be ripe, because it takes about 6 months for a proposal, once it is filed, to come into the debate at Parliament. And so our parliamentary group, we filed 4 proposals. One of them is that the government should do a study and explore 3 questions, namely, is there unused energy potential in our canton that is just being wasted? The second question is, could this be used for Bitcoin mining? And the third question was, could Bitcoin mining industry help to stabilize our energy grid? And we were actually able to get a clear majority on this demand to the government last week. So now the government has the task to explore these questions and to write a report. And within that task, we want to use the opportunity to bring together electricity companies, those that maintain the net, and government officials, as well as Bitcoin miners. So that's something that we want to do in the coming weeks and months, to bring all those together at the table and to see where this brings us, if there's a win-win situation, if there's really this benefit that we see in other countries. So we need to explore whether it's possible in Canton Bern.
It's amazing. It's when I saw this got passed, it made me think about, because I'm from Scotland, we've
Yeah.
got a lot of renewable energy and a lot of wasted the energy that's not
Right.
getting utilized. So
Right.
I've been pushing and pulling some strings, trying to do something similar.
Mm.
And I like that you went in with the approach of building a report, whether there is
Yes.
energy to be utilized, and is Bitcoin mining then a good thing to be putting in there, rather than just going in saying we need to put Bitcoin miners in here because X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. It was clear that this would be the one from the 4 proposals that would be the easiest to pass. And strategically, I also asked someone else to be the main sponsor of that proposal, who is like the energy expert in our parliament. So because we all have normal jobs, we're not like career politicians who know nothing about the real world, but we really have some bright minds amongst ourselves. So this guy who is really involved and knowledgeable about the energy sector, he was willing to be the main sponsor of the proposal, and he's also from the Green Liberal Party, which is sort of center left, and as the name says, green. So it was also good to have him being the main sponsor, and then there were 4 or 5 other co-sponsors from 4 or 5 different political parties. So that was strategically, I think, a very good move. And the parliament passed it with about 2-1 margin. So it was quite a clear victory.
Yeah. It must be really
The
nice.
parliament, yeah, decided it to pass that proposal against the will of the government. So the government did not want to do this study. But the parliament said, no, we want to know more now.
Ah, that's amazing to see that you've got that power to do that. And
Yes.
how important was it that you had? Because it's really nice to see and to hear that there's been a lot of cross-party
Mhm.
collaboration on getting this through. How important has that actually been?
I think it's been very important in this case because he managed to, like the Green Liberals, they are not, they are quite a medium-sized party, so it was quite decisive that the whole party was behind that proposal. Um, and whenever you propose something that's not, well, where the government says, okay, yes, that's a good idea, let's do this, then it's always good to have three, four, or five co-sponsors from different parties. So we have 10 different parties in our parliament. And so usually you would try to get as many as possible. And and it's very common that you would try to work together with other parties whenever you have an idea, because the largest party, the Swiss People's Party, they have 44 out of 160 seats, so they are very far away from a majority. So even the largest party, they need allies to get anything done. And I'm a member of the smallest parliamentary group. But if I have a good idea and if I find my allies, I can get things passed as well.
Oh, wow. That's really cool to hear how it works. Um, has there, I can imagine there has been quite a lot, but how much education have you had to do during this process of yeah, getting this passed? Have you had to educate people around Bitcoin to be able to for them to pass it?
Yes. So there, I would say four, 3 to 4 of us in the parliament are really convinced Bitcoiners, like more than the others. And especially a good friend of mine, Korab Rashiti, and I, we we used many opportunities in the past 2.5 years to just talk to our fellow MPs about Bitcoin. We were always thinking, who could be open? Then we would approach that person, ask them, and oftentimes there was really also interest there, and so it took a while. And I'm also a co-founder of the organization Bitcoin Alps, which was founded actually in the place where I live. And it's, I mean, it's a local meetup in Thun. That's a town south of Bern, our capital city. And with Bitcoin Alps, we had an education event 1 year ago in the summer of 2023, when we distributed different Bitcoin books to the members of parliament. And we distributed more than 90 books. So we already felt then that there was some interest. Um, I guess most MPs did not end up reading the books they took with, but some did. So
What
it's
books
always,
out of interest did you so far?
um, we had the Orange Pille from Ijoma Mangold. Ijoma Mangold is an intellectual, a German, who wrote for mainstream media as well. So he's not your typical Bitcoiner, but a very bright mind, and yeah, in a way also a bit of a philosopher. And he wrote a great book, but a bit for, let's say, the your typical intellectuals, which of course also need to be reached with Bitcoin. And then we had the little Bitcoin book for those who wanted something smaller. And we had L'Internet de l'argent, well, in French, which was written by Antonopoulos, uh, but translated in French. So we had these three were the choice they had.
A good choice, and I think it's getting the balance of not going uh, too aggressive with the Bitcoin books. Because
Mhm.
a good example that I give is I don't give anyone the Bitcoin standard to start
Mhm.
with because I think it's a book for a little bit later down the line. You need something more to ease people in
Mhm.
without scaring them too much. So apart from the books, what other resources have you used to educate people? You mentioned
Mhm.
webinars as well before.
Yes. So, well, the webinars, I just did as a private person. Although, of course, you cannot always clearly separate it. And of course, I also had friends from politics attending the webinars. I did, but we also had, I think now, two lunch events to which we invited members of parliament. One was probably already 2 years ago when we invited Julian Liniger from Relay, a Swiss Bitcoin only startup. You might have heard about it. And he lives in Canton Bern as well, actually quite close to Bern. And so it was a good showcase to see, look, we have a young entrepreneur here, successful one. He's Bitcoin in the Bitcoin space. And then we had a lunch event again last week, again with Julian, but we also had Dennis Porter online with us, as well as his friend Eric from Satoshi Action Fund. And they spoke about the strategic Bitcoin reserve in the USA. So those were our education efforts.
There's lots of different types as well because people will learn in different
Mm.
ways. So like some people like
Yes.
to read, some people will need to be in person with someone. So yeah, I really like that. What
And I also wrote a book on Bitcoin at the beginning of this year called Bitcoin is Freedom. Well, it's in German. I don't have it in English yet, but also with the goal of explaining Bitcoin in a short way. It's 120 pages, not too long. Knowing that many of the other books are too, yeah, they're just too big to start, or they're going too deep too quickly. And just wanted to break down the most important concepts in a quite simple way. And so, of course, I also used my book to educate my fellow MPs.
that's such a good way of doing it as well, because it'll be in the style that you
Mm.
want. Um, with this, with the motion that got passed, what what's been like the biggest, or even outside of um this, what's been the biggest challenge that you've encountered whilst being, let's just say, whilst being a Bitcoiner in politics?
Um, the debate this week about the other proposals was quite heavy in the sense that there was a massive attack against my person for uh, for bringing these proposals to the vote. In the sense of I'm just trying to allure naive people into um, very dangerous investment. And just because I want to get rich and drive a Tesla or whatever, I don't even own a car and I live very, very frugally, really pleb lifestyle. But were quite heavy attacks, yeah, especially from one fellow MP. So this is the price I guess I have to pay, that people misunderstand me. Um, many do misunderstand me. Um, but at the same time, hundreds of people are very thankful that I'm speaking up and that I informed them about Bitcoin, and they were able to get in at good prices, very good
Mhm.
prices, I would say, and had good counsel, like not doing all the stupid mistakes I did. Uh, so that's just how it is. Time will be the judge.
Exactly, exactly. And now so we can actually speak about this. Now the Bitcoin's over
Mm,
$100,000. Like I've been talking about this for a long time and
mhm,
thinking about it, and I know it was going to come, but
mhm,
when
mhm.
it came, I was just like, cool, on to the next one. Um, how's it been? Have you seen a shift in um, politics or in Switzerland or in Bern specifically because the price has gone up to 100,000?
I don't think that the 100,000 was that big of a thing. I mean, it was yesterday in the early morning here in Europe. It, I mean, the timing is very interesting because the remaining three proposals were debated yesterday afternoon, a few hours after Bitcoin hit $100,000 for the first time. So make of it what you will, but it was good timing. But I think a major thing was with the ETFs and, of course, breaking new all-time high. I think those things were more important than 100,000.
Yeah. So let's move on to your pro Bitcoin strategy, um, which narrowly got rejected. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So there were three more proposals up for a vote. It wasn't in the same week because one of the proposals was under the leadership of our economic and energy minister. And the remaining three proposals, because of the content of them, they were in the responsibility of our finance minister. So they were debated later in the parliamentary session, actually almost towards the very end. And in those remaining three proposals, I demanded that citizens would be given the choice to pay their taxes in Bitcoin if they wanted to. So very voluntary. Then, if you're a state employee or also like an MP, that you could receive a part of the salary in Bitcoin. And the third one was to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve, which I already proposed in March 2020 in a proposal I put forward, but I withdrew it, because at that time I knew it's like I'll be the only one voting for this. So I thought, it was during the big COVID crash. I thought, I don't know how things will go with the financial system if the time is here where everything breaks. So it was a reaction towards this. But then when everything, like when they flooded the market with liquidity and everything was going well again and stocks were up, it was like, okay, the big crash has been called off. And I thought, okay, now no one will vote for this proposal. But in it, I had the canton of Bern should take 500 million Swiss francs and one third into gold, one third into silver, one third into cryptocurrency. Unfortunately, I did not specify Bitcoin back then yet. But if the canton had done it at the moment when I proposed it, it would be 3.5 billion now, and we would have cut our debt in half if
Wow.
that proposal had been implemented. But it was way too early. And now I was like very cautious, suggesting one Bitcoin a week. So not even one
Mhm.
Bitcoin a day, as El Salvador, as a third world country, is doing, but one Bitcoin a week, which is like a very, very modest proposal. That was for the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Yeah. So those were rejected with about 77 to around 66, 65 votes. Yeah, that was basically the margin.
It, it's very similar to, obviously, I'm not in politics at all,
Mm,
but I wrote an open letter in
mm,
2021 to the Scottish government, and I wrote that we should be, because at this time there was a lot of
mhm,
talk around going independent from the UK,
mm. Right,
and
right.
I stated that I wouldn't vote for this
Mm,
independence unless we would set up a Bitcoin reserve.
mm,
And then we ran a big conference in 2022 in Edinburgh,
mm,
and we invited every single member of parliament to come along, but unfortunately nobody came. So I've been fighting a similar battle, not the same, but a similar battle, trying to table a Bitcoin reserve in some shape or form. When's the next time? Because this one got rejected. When's the next time that you can table that again?
So we have the rule that we can only bring the same proposal. If it's rejected, we have to wait till the new legislative period, which starts after the next general elections, which will be in March 2026. And then the first parliamentary session would be in June 2026, which is the earliest moment when we could file a similar proposal, unless we write it maybe in a way where whoever then decides about these matters, if we find a way to propose the same idea, but in a way that's sort of being accepted as not being quite the same, or within the budgetary process. So we had our big budget debate also this week. So for the year 2025, the window of opportunity is closed, but we'll have the next budget debate in December 2025 for the year 2026. And I would need to do some research whether through this budgetary process we could already make a similar proposal again, which would be then very concrete.
And I guess it might line up quite well with for your mining report, because how long is that going to take to build that report and then deliver it? I imagine it will take quite a long time.
Yeah, the government could use up to 2 years to do it.
Oh wow.
But maybe they want to do it quicker and say, well, let's get this behind it. This annoying thing, let's just do it. So I don't know. We'll have to see.
How does that work then? Actually, just sorry, going back to the mining report, how how does that get built? Are you involved in that process?
Not necessarily. So it's within the government's responsibility to write that report. And if they absolutely do not want to include me, they don't have to. There's nothing I could do about it. But together with fellow MPs, I mean, especially the other guy I mentioned, who is working in the energy sector, he's well connected. So he said, let me get those guys together. And I got contacted by several dozen citizens and mining entrepreneurs, also from abroad Switzerland or from companies that work abroad but have their seat in Switzerland. So I'm really amazed about the feedback I got. And I started to collect them all in a Telegram group and to then, well, once things become a bit more clearer, to say, okay, who's really in, who really wants to come together in a working group and tell the government what we can offer and what we need. So I'm ready to do some work on that side.
When I was looking, is there 26 Swiss cantons?
Yes.
Yeah. Has this any of your activity over the past 6 months, let's say, has that caught the attention of any of the other cantons?
Yes. So Canton Zug, which is a very small canton next to Zurich, they already many years ago they uh, successfully attracted many crypto companies, but unfortunately they've become like a bit of a shitcoin valley, and we keep on hearing bad news from out of there because different altcoins projects are just burning up there, and the I would say the government, or I mean the parliament, was totally not involved with this. This was a thing that the finance minister did, and it was sort of deposit. And they are like the tax haven of Switzerland. So they're in this role where just okay, let's we have low tax. Let's bring some innovation and Web3 with 5.0 and blockchain and DeFi, whatever. Just come, and we make good conditions for you here. So that's sort of what Canton Zug did, and they also enable citizens and companies to pay taxes in Bitcoin and Ether in 2021. So they were, I mean, not everything's bad. So they were quite on the forefront, but not really pushing it, just sort of as a sign, we like to have your money here. Then we have the town of Lugano in the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, which launched a Plan B project, onboarding hundreds of merchants to accept Bitcoin, but also Tether and the local stablecoin, which people can use to get a discount if they are residents of Lugano. And that project is going very well, very successful project, mainly because Tether is just giving millions to that project out of their huge treasury and earnings they have. So of course that's attractive for a town and a government to say, okay, well, let's have these millions, bring them on. But if that is not the case, to like come up from within the parliament and say we want like an active pro-Bitcoin strategy, that we're a first to do that. But I have heard from other cantons that at least the mining proposal that it might be put forward, and so maybe in one or two more cantons as of now.
I see, and how I could also use this as like
Yes.
almost like a case study of you are doing this and living proof that this is happening. You've got this mining report going through, and I think it makes other people in different nations also aware of what's capable, or what they could also do to push through something similar for their country.
Yeah, I think it's what makes our case quite unique, I would say, is the fact that this came from parliament. So we have the example of Bhutan, where it was the king who was orange pilled and who said, let's do the Bitcoin mining. Then we have the example of El Salvador with Najib Bukele saying we're doing this, and he has very strong hold over his party and the parliament, and they just followed his lead. Then we had different states in the US that got the Bitcoin rights bills enshrined, but those are more like defensive bills, which are great. That Dennis Porter is working on that. Very good first steps. But I think it was like the first parliament that, at least to a little degree, said, yes, we want to explore this, and we want to sort of actively explore Bitcoin. And yeah, I'm thankful for that. That was always my hope, and what I aimed for, that our canton, which is not known to be innovative and like the tech hub or whatever you want to call it, that we could surprise others by making a first step.
Yeah, it's honestly great to see, and I thank you for it, because now I can then use what you're doing as a case study to show people here in the UK.
Yes.
And I think that's a great thing, because, as you said, like you've got El Salvador, you've got Bhutan, who are mining ridiculous amounts of Bitcoin, and it's now at, I think it's in their 30s, 33% of their GDP.
Around there, yes.
It's around there in the 30s. So yeah, I just thank you for everything you're doing. I'm going to round off our conversation here, but where can people find you if they want to get in contact with you or keep up with what you're doing?
I'm most active on X. You can also find me on Facebook, on Nostr, but not too active there yet. I think it will change, but right now X is from the place to be for me. And of course, you can also Google me and find any other contact information.
Awesome. That was a great insight. Thank you so much for joining.
Well, thank you for the invitation, Jordan. It was a pleasure. And good luck on your side. I visited the Parliament in Edinburgh in 2009, and I liked it.
Come.
I was there for a conference, and whenever I'm in a place, if I have time and the opportunity arises, I like to go and visit the Parliament building.
The Edinburgh one, I think, is quite unique. I've never been inside, but I've only seen outside.
I've been inside.
Perfect. Right. Well, hopefully I'll see you in Edinburgh at some point.
Yeah, would be nice. I like the city.
Perfect. It was great chatting to you.
Yeah. Bye bye.